7:38, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. By the way, KGB, I think you're going to have to control Lee's microphone, if you would. Lee Reeves is joining us, and Lee, you are from the 65th District, and you want to replace Congressman Mark Green in the 7th Congressional District.
Well, I do. First of all, thank you for having me on this morning. Yep, I am announcing this morning that I'm running for the 7th Congressional District here in Tennessee.
So you are just finishing up your first term. Like, you've been in the state legislature for like a year. So are you ready for such a quick promotion?
Well, it's a good question, and it's one I'm sure I'm going to get. But look, I wanted to serve the people, and this is not the timing I would have chosen. Obviously, I would have hoped that our congressman had stayed longer, and I may not be running, but the opportunity is right now to serve a greater district than the one I have and I love. I love what I'm doing right now, but I think it's an opportunity to serve.
Well, your district, and I've been mentioning this, is made up of parts of Franklin, Thompson Station, Leapers Fork, and Fairview. Yep. And so I'm going to ask you the same thing I asked Jody Barrett yesterday. So the 7th Congressional District does have, parts of Nashville, and is it going to be difficult to reach all those folks? Well,
look, there's all kinds of different demographics. We've got people in rural counties. We've got suburban areas. We've got downtown, very urban areas. Fortunately, I've lived in all of those kind of areas. And so I think I can relate to everybody and understand where they are positionally.
Let's talk about your background real quick. What did you do before politics? I know that you went to Georgetown Law.
I did. So I went to Georgetown Law, and I practiced real estate law for 12, 13 years. Sophisticated contracts, representing big banks and, making loans and that sort of thing. And then, people buying and selling. Got onto the investment side of real estate and started investing myself and, have continued to do that. So I understand businesses. I understand budgets. I understand payroll. I've made payroll for a long, long time now. And I bring that into the political role that I both inhabit now and that I'm seeking.
I thought it was interesting, the reason why you got into politics. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, happy to. So we moved to Tennessee now I grew up in Bowling Green, Kentucky. So, kind of wanted to get back to the region, but had lived in a couple different places, moved here in 2019. And the first thing I did was get involved in the community. I went out and sought out a civic organization and stopped by the Lions Club, and Rotary was next. But the Lions Club, I think, needed energy, and that's where I decided to put my energy. It's very similar to analyzing this congressional race right now. This is where energy is needed. And so I've been very consistent about trying to serve. And that's why I got involved in politics in the first place.
Talk about the Education Freedom Act.
Sure.
You voted for it.
I did.
And so I think when you look at you versus at least one of your other opponents, he voted against and you voted for. So I think that's going to be one of the distinctions. So talk about why it is that you voted for the Education Freedom Act.
Well, I'm happy to. I ran on that for the State House. It was important to me that parents be afforded a choice in their children's education. I think parents ought to direct those education funds instead of teachers' unions. And so I stood with President Trump on a Trump-backed bill, and we got that over the finish line, and I'm happy that we did.
I think, and this is going to lead into my next question, most folks running for the 7th are going to say that they are very Trump-supporting, staunch supporters of the president and his agenda. So how are you going to make yourself stand out?
Well, listen, the race is going to have a lot of talkers. I'm a doer, right? I get things done. I've passed bills. I've stood firm. I've taken heat in some cases to get results. Look, I'm a workhorse. I'm not a show pony, and I'll say that right up front. I get in the trenches and get things done. I think Washington needs more workhorses.
Would you have voted for the Big Beautiful Bill?
I sure would have.
Okay.
I sure would have. And it did some very important things, right? The first is we avoided the largest tax hike in history. Okay. We secured our border with that bill. We are going to finish the wall. We have funded our immigration efforts in the state, in the country, sorry. And then we've also expanded school choice on the national level. And I think all of those things are very important.
Taking out the Department of Education, you're for that?
I am absolutely for that.
It's one of the big things that President Trump has wanted to do, and a lot of people, as you know, Republicans have been wanting that gone for a long time.
Reagan wanted to get rid of it, and he accurately noted that once you have a government program, it's hard to not have a government program.
Yeah, once they're used to it. All right, coming up, we're going to talk about a question that, again, I asked Jody Barrett yesterday, which is, why do people hate Congress, and why do you want to do this?
Yeah, fair enough.
So we'll talk about that. 7:45, time to check the roads on WTN. 7:45 on WTN. As far as your weather for today, it's going to be hot, 92, probably going to feel like 98, 99 degrees, and some possible thunderstorms as well. Appreciate you listening to Nashville's Morning News. Lee Reeves is joining us. He is the state representative for the 65th District, and he wants to replace Congressman Mark Green in the 7th Congressional District. And, of course, we all know that he has decided to retire from Congress. So, Lee, let's talk a little bit about why is it that everybody hates Congress, and why do you want to do this?
Yeah, those are both great questions. Why does everybody hate Congress? Because they have the sense that you go up there and it's very tough to get things done. And guess what? It's gotten worse. We have a very slim majority, and I think we need people up there who are working very hard every day to get President Trump's agenda across the goal line. And that's what I would go up there and do. And I think we've got others who want to hold votes hostage to, negotiate, this or that. And sometimes that's important, but not right now. We've got a very slim majority, and I want to go implement the agenda that President Trump has.
You are a supporter for legal immigration. Like all conservatives, you want to demagnetize Tennessee, and we want no illegal immigration, obviously what we want. Are you satisfied with President Trump's mass deportation efforts so far, and specifically here in the state of Tennessee?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's never a perfect system when you are having to catch up from 4 years of just a totally open border.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am absolutely for getting criminal illegal aliens out of our state and out of our country. I passed legislation this year to give law enforcement an additional tool to do that for illegal aliens from other states driving on our roads. I also have two bills still yet to pass, and if I'm elected, I will sign those over to somebody else to continue to carry that ball. But the first is to urge the federal government to make legal immigration streamlined, that faster, less expensive, because I think it's important that we do that. But also another bill actually gives even further tools to our law enforcement to make sure that we demagnetize our state.
And that is so huge. And I think everybody knows that and appreciates those efforts. You went to college, Georgetown Law, and Washington, D.C. I've been to Washington, D.C. a couple of times. Used to live in Richmond, Virginia. I remember Washington, D.C., way back when as an incredible city, and it is now basically devolved into a crap hole. I was just talking earlier in the program about what has happened to my hometown of Los Angeles. These are all the impacts of Democrat rule. When you go back to Washington, D.C., because I'm sure you have occasion to go back, is it a reminder of what you fight for as being so important because you see what happens with Democrat rule?
Well, it sure is. And it's always an oddity to me that our cities tend to go blue, whether it's D.C., New York, Houston, Nashville even, and why people vote for that. And I've yet to understand why, because we see examples all the time in our downtown urban areas of decay and things kind of falling apart and not being able to keep up. And so it is a question in my mind why people vote for that. But we've had instances where Republicans go in and fix things, and I'm hoping that across the country, people see that things are moving in a better direction and move that way.
I think that is why it is so important to support Donald Trump and everything that he wants to do, because he is fixing things. One of the other questions that I would have, and maybe it'll come up on your campaign, but there are a lot of people that say, well, what Republicans need to do is reach across the aisle and look for that bipartisanship. And tell me a little bit about whether or not you're feeling bipartisan these days.
Well, listen, I'm bipartisan where there's a chance to get something done. But look, I'm not going to go to Washington to make friends. I'm going to fight for Tennessee values. But I will say this. I've also passed conservative laws here in our state by working with others when it mattered. And I think that's an important distinction to make. I know how to be effective without ever compromising my principles, and that's somebody that we need up in Washington.
And it's interesting because you're right. When you have the other side, and we talk about this often, but when you have the other side where they are hell-bent on just destruction and they have no interest in bipartisanship, that's when we as conservatives need to go to war.
That's right. Yeah, no, that's right. But hopefully we can find those areas where we can agree. I mean, I passed a bill, several bills this year where I've worked across the aisle and said, look, I'd love your vote, and never changed the content of my bill, but was able to talk people through why it was important for our state.
Give me the 60-second elevator pitch for why folks should vote for you for Congress.
Well, I appreciate that. So, again, my name is Lee Reeves. I'm a state representative in District 65, Williamson County. I'm a Christian. I'm a conservative. I'm a husband. I'm a father of 3 children. I've passed laws to stop illegal immigration in our state. I have passed laws to secure the military vote in local primary elections, and I have helped get school choice across the line here in Tennessee. So I'm running to back up President Trump and push his America First agenda forward. He's our quarterback, and I'm the workhorse ready to carry the ball. So I'll just say this. I'm not here to be a show pony wide receiver waving for the ball. I'm a lineman in the trenches, and I'm going to grind every single play to win that game for the 7th District of Tennessee.
So what does the campaign look like for you? You're going to go, as we say, shake a bunch of hands and kiss a bunch of babies?
Well, yeah, shake some babies and kiss some hands. I don't know. I don't know how it goes.
I don't know if you're familiar with me, but I shank things all the time, and I really wanted to make sure I didn't screw that up.
That's right.
Thank you for.
That's right. I saw you carefully going there. No, look, we're going to go talk to as many people as we can in the 7th District. We're going to tell them why it's important to have an effective workhorse legislator up in D.C., and I think we're going to win this thing.
LeeReeves.com, LeeReeves.
All E's. LeeReeves.com.
Right. Very good. Good luck to you. Thank you very much for coming in, and we'll talk again soon. It is 7:51 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7. Joan Jones is in the WTN Newsroom. Joan, what's coming up at 8?